Today, we become legends.
Today's Titan Talk was mostly Q&A with a couple of extra announcements about the OB8 launch at the top of the show. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you find value in these recaps, but without further ado, let's jump into today's Titan Talk. First up, we are now back on the old movement system as of OB8 launch for now. Some issues arose that need to be addressed with a new movement system that will take a while to implement, so they decided to roll back to the old system while they fix those issues. They didn't give an ETA on when it will come back, but hopefully pretty soon. The assault map has also had some love this update that wasn't mentioned before, as it now has been arted out and the grey box walls are gone, which is nice to see. This likely means this assault layout is what we'll be using for the foreseeable future until we can get a dedicated assault map, as I don't think they would art out the full map and then change it again. This is probably what we have for now until we get a proper assault map. Someone asked about the early perception and stats of Kali, and Kilgun said it's too early for them to have stats on it, but there appears to be quite a few strong builds for her going around, such as the strength on hit builds and intelligence ability based builds. There was a question if they could allow to filter items by stats or in groups in the God Builder rather than the limited categorization we have right now, and Kilgun said yes, they'll look into it, but at the moment they felt like most people making their own builds will know how to easily find what they're looking for within that stats page. Someone asked about a ranked reset and when it will be happening, and Isaiah said Max is still cooking up some rank changes in the background, and the soft reset is currently planned for OB9, the next update, so basically 2 weeks from today. Someone asked if skin boosters should allow you to use prisms, and Kilgun said they probably should be able to, yes. There was a question about why the change to Soul Reaver was made, and Isaiah basically said it was in line with the item specialization pass to make Soul Reaver a truly anti-tank item that puts in work against tanks but doesn't really do as much against squishies. Someone asked if there was any updates to the Lost Knight in Joust plan to have some more unique attack patterns or some kind of drop like the Obsidian Dagger from Conquest, and Kilgun said he'll pass that feedback along to the team. It sounds like a decent idea. There was a question about the side lanes at Assault and why they were removed, and Isaiah said they could maybe bring them back at some point, but the majority of feedback from players was that they didn't belong in Assault, and it was more Conquest and Joust players that played the occasional Assault game saying they liked them, whereas true Assault mains didn't for the most part. That's what they found in the data. Someone asked about an equip all functionality for God equipables like badges and loading frames, and Kilgun said it's on the docket, but they're still not sure exactly what patch it will be in. There was a question about when we can expect the next Wandering Market, and they said generally they do these once every 2 months, so the next one should be around 6 weeks from now in patch OB11. Kilgun also mentioned some additional Wandering Market stuff that they're working on that isn't a traditional collection, which is pretty cool. Someone asked for an update on announcer packs, and they said they're being worked on and should be here pretty soon, probably OB9, or if not then OB10. They've also been talking to some ex-employees like Hi-Res Bar and stuff like that to see if they can get their announcer packs in for Smite 2. Kilgun said in the future of God Builder they do plan to add a feature where you can copy someone's build from your match into your build so you can use it in future matches, but it didn't quite make it into the initial version for OB8. It'll probably be OB9 when this is added, which is also when they've stated that auto build will work with God Builder as well. On a related note, someone asked if there would be translations for God Builder builds, and Kilgun said probably not, but hopefully you can still at least use the build that's not in your language just by the item icons, even if you don't understand the descriptions that people have written. They just don't have an accurate way to automatically translate at the moment that wouldn't be insanely costly. Someone asked how many gods are in development at any one time, and Kilgun said they're currently actively working on around 6 gods at the moment, in some form at least, and around 4 of those are playable in tests. There was a question about how hard Bakasura would be to port over, and Kilgun said he wouldn't be too hard, but he does have some unique stuff around his minion and jungle camp eating, as well as programming the AI for his regurgitative minions. Someone asked how long it takes from start to finish for a completely new god, and Kilgun said generally around 3 to 4 months, but they can get them in a playable rough state fairly quickly to test things out before they do anything fancy like arting them out or the animation work. There was a question about if builds are rated at all in God Builder and if win rate factors into it or anything, and Kilgun said at the moment they are just working off of the most favorited builds. He mentioned that adding in win rates generally makes the game more boring, because just copying a build that wins more than another build can quickly lead to stagnation of builds, and it's healthier for the long term of the game when people are thinking a bit more about their builds. Someone asked if the layoffs will affect some of the gods that they mentioned will come this year, such as Mercury, King Arthur, Scylla, and Sylvanas, and Kilgun said all of the ones mentioned at the Vegas showcase are still on track to ship this year. There was a question about increasing the amount of bans for ranked, and Kilgun said they're still having discussions internally about how to approach this, and they'd like to add more bans, but they don't want to extend the time it takes to get into a match. They said they like the Smite 1 system where each person gets 1 ban, as that often results in only around 6 to 8 bans anyway, because the top 1 or 2 gods often get duplicate banned, so that might be more likely than just a straight up 3 bans per team increase. Someone asked if directed taunts between gods could come back, and Isaiah said he thinks they're in the process at the moment, but not sure when they will come. Someone asked about Mannequin Scepter, and Kilgun said they haven't talked about it internally, but it's definitely possible that item could return. Animosity and Hero's Axe were also mentioned, and Kilgun said they don't particularly fit with the philosophy of Smite 2, you, as they don't want you to be building tanky and still dealing very high damage. So probably we won't see something like Hero's Axe or Animosity effect in the near future. There was a question about having community votes for classic skins, and they said they've talked about this before, but they generally don't like doing votes on something that will take a while to create after the vote has ended, as the hype sort of dies down if the skin comes out 1 to 2 months after the vote is concluded. They also mentioned that some skins take a lot more work than others, and if they put a lot of time into a lot of highly requested classic skins, they might miss out on several easier to make classic skins that could have been done in the meantime. Someone asked if they could go back to shipping one god a week, and Kilgoon said they absolutely could, but it would mean dropping almost everything else they're working on in the game, such as wandering markets, god builder, new items, map art updates, all that kind of stuff. They have said in previous Titan talks that once the game is in a more concrete and complete state, maybe closer to release, and they have less critical features to get in, they could return to one god a week at that point. But it's always a matter of balancing other game features with gods. There was a question about letting players purchase worshipper boosters at some point, and Kilgoon said yes at some point, but not sure when. And finally, a tier 5s were mentioned again, and Kilgoon said they generally don't know if it's worth investing the effort required for a tier 5 right now, when there are a lot of other areas of the game that could use that development time instead. But at some point, they will definitely get back to working on tier 5s. And in terms of ported tier 5s, they mentioned that they might bring back specific final forms of classic tier 5s without any of the flashy effects or transformations, just the base final form. But that's everything discussed on today's Titan Talk. Be sure to subscribe here to catch all my future recaps, and I'll catch you guys for another one later on. Have a great day, and peace out, you nerds.